if you continue to feed your mind with all of the things that are on TV, denigration, kind of uh, vitriolic outrage, and these action movies, which are really entertaining, but full of violence and revenge and hate. And you read the news and you watch the TV and you listen to the news and you do this. These are the things that permeate your mind. These are the things that are always going through your brain. These are the things that you create to come to you.
Welcome to Supernormalized, the podcast where we challenge the conventional, break boundaries, and normalize the seemingly supernatural. Join me, CJ Barnaby, in the liminalist space to explore less charted realms of existence and to unravel the mysteries of life experience. Each episode, I'm blessed with the opportunity to talk to regular people from across the world where they openly share their understanding and wisdom in service to others. If you're looking to upgrade your life, you've come to the right place. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll bring you great transforming conversations each week. My treasured viewers and listeners, if you have a life story or healing modality or unique knowledge that you'd love to share, reach out to me at supernormalized@proton.me. Let's together embrace acceptance of the supernatural and unusual, what it really is, completely normal. On this episode of Supernormalized, I am talking with Neil Elliott. He's the writer of a book called A Higher Road, which goes into his process that he discovered for himself that actually assisted him in escaping suicidal depression into a greater understanding of life. And now, through his book, he helps others to find their way out of the darkness as well. It's a very deep conversation because Neil goes really clearly into the understanding of how we process information when it comes to understanding ourselves, and then also into the benefits of looking at yourself in a more kind way. This is certainly a deep conversation. There is talk of depression and suicide, so just be aware of that. And beside all that, it's a very enriching and enlightening talk. Enjoy. Welcome to Supernormalized, Neil Elliott. Neil, you've got a story to share. Where would you like to start?
At the beginning is always a good spot, yes?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So tell us about what your story actually is related to here. I mean, you've had a transformation and you're expressing that in writing and getting that out to the world. What caused you to get to this point?
Uh, I'll give everybody context. So born in 1960. So that gives people context. Youngest is 6, and my father died when I was 5. So in 1965, my mom had to go out and work.
That's tough.
So what got me? Yeah. So what got me here was I'm a professional engineer with an MBA, or well, that's my profession anyway. Professional engineer, MBA, over 30 years, and I started a consulting firm in early 2000s and was doing really well. But bottom line was, I was just slowly driving myself into this really deep, dark, despondent depression.
Yeah, right.
And didn't really know that's what I was doing. I didn't understand it. But, when I traveled, I was, my wife was from Germany originally. So when we travel, especially in Europe, I would just have a great time and fun and stuff. But when I got back to work and, as a consultant, You don't get paid for time off. You don't get paid sick, all that kind of stuff. So life became about work, work, work.
Mm.
And we had this beautiful waterfront home that we built away from the city. And, it it required a lot of care and feeding. So I worked, and realized that when I was, in 2015, I realized I was really in this dark place and happy when I traveled, miserable the rest of the time. Didn't share it with my wife, didn't share it with the family, no one knew. And we're empty nesters at that point. And so I started to pick up spiritual books and do some reading, trying to see if I could get myself out of this funk. And bottom line is in 2017, we had our house on the market and it was in this depressed area from a market perspective, nothing like Vancouver, British Columbia, which is, gone crazy. But the collapse in 2008 and it never recovered. And so it took 5 years to sell and we lost a ton of money on it. But the bottom line was in November 2017, we finally had an inked deal to sell it, and we would, they'd take possession sometime at the end of January, early February. And my wife got on a plane to fly to Toronto, Ontario, Canada to visit family friends. We're in this little one-bedroom rental apartment in the city. I sat down at the kitchen table, crafted my suicide note, planned out my suicide, and I planned it out about 3 months to ensure we could move and I get rid of all the, stuff I accumulated over a lifetime to try and ease the burden for my wife. And then I planned to actually, take my life in a way that the my life insurance would pay out to ensure she'd be financially okay. A week prior to that, some information showed up to me in this fortuitous way that promised to liberate me from my thinking if I studied it and followed it. And so I thought, well, I'll give it one last go. And if it doesn't work, I can always pull the trigger. And if it's working, I'll just keep pushing out the date. So I started on the process, started reading the material, cycling through it, started on this process. And uh, by end of December 2018, so that like 13 months later, I went into these two meditations, and meditation's part of this process, but I went into these two meditations 2 days apart and get settled and I got into the meditative state. And then just like in an instant, I was filled with unconditional love. And then I felt like I was just bathed in it, like I was this deep sea diver suspended in the ocean, an ocean of unconditional love. I felt non-judged. I felt totally supported. I felt incredibly loved. I didn't care what anybody done to me, what I'd done to anybody. Everything just washed away, and I was just bathed in this unconditional love. Came out of that meditation. I just wanted to stay there forever. Came out of that meditation 2 days later, had the exact same meditation. And at that point, I knew that this process I followed brought me back to our truth. And I'm going to say our truth because it's everybody's truth, but how you get there might be different. But brought me back to our truth. And then from then on, what I did is I just kept going with the material. I still hadn't shared with my wife or anybody. I just kept going with that material. I wanted to be so solid in what I knew and what I felt that I didn't like, I did not want anybody to shake me out and with their doubt and their criticisms and their judgments. I didn't want them to shake me out of this. I wanted to really ensure it was embedded. So I stayed with it. And then a couple years after, I thought, okay, I'm so solid now. I'd like to share my story with the hopes that it will help people. And so I wrote this book. It took a year to write and publish. And, it's been out for a few years now, but the book essentially is my experience as a child. So I do a memoir for the first two parts. The third part is a part in consciousness. The fourth part is a capture or a sharing of some of the material I used. And in the fifth part, it's what happened during the process for me to explain exactly what happened to me. in the hopes that, people pick it up, they'll read it, they'll perhaps explore this material. If it rings true to them, they can get it from me at that point for free. And it's so logical and it's so rational and it's so based in science that it enabled me to bridge this gap between spirituality and and um, and our reality, our human reality. So because it was so logical, I was able to, just have faith and build faith in the process. And then as I stayed with that process, I've had all kinds of experiences since then.
Wow, that sounds totally amazing that it's delivered you from that deep, deep darkness so easily and so beautifully.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say, it was simple, but not necessarily easy.
Oh,
but
okay.
I but I can tell you it's well worth it.
Where did you find this meditation?
Well, it's beyond a meditation, but in this material, which I don't share what it is because
Yeah.
if this material came to me any point sooner in my life, I would have run from it. Just the way it's marketed and the way it's presented.
Mhm.
But I was in such a state of deep despair and depression that I thought I will just read anything to see if it works. And so this material teaches you the meditation, but not until you're almost finished it. And the reason is because it still asks you to meditate early on in this work, but you just do the best you can do. And then the reason it delays teaching you the meditation is because there's a whole you have to understand what your target is. You have to understand why you're doing this, the purpose of meditation, and that has to get embedded in your psyche in order to, when you get to that meditation, to pick it up and do it the way that it describes doing it. It's a little bit if, for example, some people might say to you, you say, well, who am I really? And they might say to you, you are God. And your ego, the little I mind of ego, will take that and it'll just conjure up its own thoughts and its own judgments about that. And it won't even be understood by the recipient of that. And so the same thing is like this material is structured in such a way that as you read it and these stories are shared with you and this logic is shared with you, it does this unknown work and unbeknownst to me or unbeknownst to anybody, it'll do this silent work within you. And so, for example, I started on this process instead, to meditate. So I started meditating in the morning, 20 minutes or something I started with. I now meditate an hour and a half every morning. That soon happened over that year. And it's the most joyous, wonderful, peaceful, loving moment of the day. And this material, what happens is that it'll teach you this meditation or it'll teach you to meditate. But the language and the structure of it is doing this work unknown within you. But it takes persistence and dedication to the task. As it does this work, eventually what happens is you will experience something. So, our creator emits unconditional love to you 24/7. But your humanhood, I'll call it little I mind of ego, is so dense and at such a low vibrational frequency that it cannot receive that and understand it and feel it until you start to go through this process of cleansing your consciousness and then rebuilding it. And so after 7 months, 8 months in, around 7 months of this process, I started to feel this little tingling at the top of the head. Didn't know what it was. It felt really weird. It was about the size of a dime. I thought, okay, well, that's really strange, but I'll just keep going. I wonder what's going on there. And I didn't relate it necessarily to what I was doing. Over time, probably about over 2, 3 months, that grew slowly. So then it became, 3 inches and then 4 inches in diameter, then 6 inches in diameter. Today, you can put a bowl over my head. It's below my ears, that opening. And what was happening was, in reality, and this is explained through some of this material I share, but it's building new brain cells impressed with new knowledge under the topmost areas of the brain, just under the skull, and they operated at this higher vibrational frequency. And that what I was starting to feel was this energy coming into my body that would come into my body. It may reside in my head. It could be in my chest or my stomach or my throat, or run up and down my body, run down one side of my body and up the other side of my body. Or it might just totally fill my body. And this energy does unknown work within us, but it's doing things that help you realign and help you continue this cleansing work of your consciousness to come back to be in alignment with where we return to after we die and where we came from before we died. And that has just carried on. And that work continues within me, and I continue to do it. And I'll tell you, your whole view of the world changes as you get this love and the support and this ongoing caring, um, that'll just flow through you.
Mm.
And I tell you, your whole world changes. Nothing changed physically in my environment, but my entire outlook in life changed.
It sounds as though what's happened is that you've found a new place that you're centered in and in the chaos of the world. And instead of it affecting you so much, it's offered you more resilience.
That's a way to describe it, absolutely. Except I'm not sure I'm even resilient. I think it's just when you come back to know who you are, you know everybody, your soul is perfect. Your soul is unconditional love. Everybody's soul is. So when I see another person today, I don't, and engage with them, I don't pay attention to what they're saying, necessarily what they're saying or what they're doing that might be reprehensible, because I know that what they are doing is they are creating events and experiences to rebound to them, to teach them or wake them up to learn the lessons that they want to learn, to have the experiences that they wanted to experience, to finally wake up and understand that they have all of the power, all of the answers, all of everything that they need to change their life right where they are right now if they just follow a process to do it. And it comes out of this, people might call this an illusion, this play we're in, and and bring us back to our truth. And when you do that, then what you see is that the stuff going on around you is really just opportunities for you to express unconditional love and to learn how to do that in the face of adversity.
That's huge. Wow. Okay. So, what are your significant obstacles you face while cleansing and rebuilding your consciousness?
So, okay, so we'll describe this in a different way. So, when when the child is born, so when the child is born,
Mm.
it comes in as this open vessel of unconditional love. And what's happening is that the brain until about age 5 doesn't develop to the point where it can make its own decisions. So the first 5 years of life, you as an individual are really being shaped by your environment, by the kind of language used, by the kind of feelings that people have around you, the emotions, whether it's loving and kind or judgment, full of judgment and hate or vengeance, those kinds of things, whether it's strict discipline or whether it's really supportive and loving. So you are being shaped by all of that experience and the language that's used and the actions and behaviors that are around you. And this is starting to program your subconscious mind. And then at age 5, the child is starting to learn to make decisions for itself. So it's taking all of that stuff that it's starting to program in its subconscious mind, And now it's starting to make its own decisions and it's pushing back on things and, doing that kind of stuff. Goes out to school. It's still learning, still shaping its personality, still shaping how it's going to perceive in life. It's essentially adopting what it believes to be right, wrong, good, bad, true, false. And as a person grows from childhood to adulthood, they becoming versed in the ways of the world. But really what they're doing is they're shutting themselves off from the light, from source, and they are letting their ego control their environment, their thoughts, their words. So I used to believe that everything that I thought was something that I had learned or experienced or been educated in, essentially. And the first thing I had to do was understand that everything I thought to be right, wrong, good, bad, true, false is really just a belief. The second thing I had to learn was that what we think about, so what we think about, how we feel affects our biology. We can either draw illness and health to our bodies, or we can promote its well-being. And it is in the words you use, but it's just as much, if not more, in the thoughts that you think. So, as an example, you might think that this person is not a nice person and you don't really like this person, but you're kind to that person, so you express kind of kind words and stuff like that, but inside you have these judgments. It's the judgments that are going to take over and draw to you these events and experiences. So the first thing I need to do is I learned through a book around how we are influenced by our external world, and that everything that we believe as right, wrong, good, bad, true, false is really just a belief. Then I learned that our beliefs and how we think affects our biology. So if you're not liking, your experience in the world, if you're not liking, because you have these illnesses and diseases that are coming to you, then the thing is, if you change your thinking, you can change your biology. And then the question becomes, how do I do that? And so then we get into the very specific process of this material that I share with people that takes you through a process of cleansing those beliefs and those thoughts and the thinking and rebuilding it to be consistent with unconditional love. And then as you do that, and it takes time, it takes energy, it takes focus. But as you do that, what you do is you end up changing your entire beliefs. And I'll give you, and coming back into alignment with who we are. So then your perspective of the world changes entirely. Things that you judged before, you no longer judge. Things that you think are horrible, you might think, I certainly wouldn't do that, but you don't judge other people for doing it because it is their experience and what they are doing. That doesn't mean you're not going to intervene if somebody's beating a child and pull them apart, but at the same time, you're not necessarily going to judge that person in a denigrating way. You just know that they're here having this experience, and that's an experience they choose to have. But you'd still do the intervention. So as an example of this is during this pandemic that we had, a few years ago, our street here was empty. There's a historic building down the street. There's these two women that I know, they were taking a walk, and they're the only people on the street. And as you approach this historic building, you go up these steps and it goes up to the second floor. That's how you enter in and out. So it's large steps that go up. This elderly woman came out of these top steps and she's gesticulating wildly and she's, really angry and upset. And she points down at them on the, down below, and she says, "You can stare all you want. I don't care what you think." And she just went on with this vitriolic outrage. And one woman at the bottom of the steps, she thought, "Oh my God, this woman's dangerous. I'm phoning the police." So she pulled out her phone, dialed the police. The other woman at the bottom of the steps, she thought, "I wonder if she needs help. I wonder if she's okay." So she reached out to her and said, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" And the woman calmed right down and explained her story. And it was logical from her perspective about why she was angry. And The only difference between those two experiences of those two women at the bottom of the steps is their thinking. You change your thinking, you change what you perceive. You change what you perceive, you change how you behave, you change how you treat other people, and things will change for you. You will start having these events and these experiences come to you that are consistent with your new thinking, your new line of speaking, and your new thoughts.
Mm, yeah, that's a really good example. How could someone identify and overcome their own human ego barriers?
There's many paths to the top of the mountain, and you need to. So, let me give this for context. So, you put 100 people in a room, and you deliver a message in a particular way. You might hit 10% of the people. You deliver the exact same message, but use different words, different examples, etc. You will hit another 10%, and so on. You'll get to a point of maybe 60, 70%, and the rest will not understand no matter how it's said. And it might even be a different ratio there. But so what you need to do is you need to find something that resonates with you. So it might take a while to find something, but you need to find something that resonates with you that gives you the steps and will do this unknown work inside of you as you continue to do this work to build your faith to continue going on the process. And the other thing that is really clear to me is that source is in silence and stillness and meditation, whether you want to call it God, Yahweh, the Tao, doesn't matter. Source is in silence and stillness, and equilibrium. And in order to connect with source, you need to learn to meditate and to go into the silence and stillness of your mind. And when you go into that silence and stillness, you will, um, you'll see, you'll see thoughts going by your awareness that you decide not to pick out and choose. This is what we do in our normal life. These thoughts just continue to go by our awareness. We pick a thought out. If it's consistent with our thinking and our feeling, we adopt it. We reinforce our thinking and our feeling. Things that are inconsistent, we just put back in the stream and away it goes. So when you learn to do this process, you will go into this silence and stillness. You will totally stop all thinking, and that enables source to make contact with you. And you will feel it however you feel it. For me, I felt energies. Today, I get guidance. I can close my eyes, I can be quiet, silent, I can ask a question, I will receive an answer. And but it takes time, it takes practice, and it takes a process. And then you have to stick with it. It doesn't have, it's not a one and done. I read it and nothing happened. I tried meditating for a month and nothing happened. You have to actually stick with it, and you have to have something that you're going to build faith, and then actually walks you through this process of cleansing your consciousness and rebuilding it.
Mm,
That's my belief.
yeah.
That's the quickest way. There's many ways. That's the quick way. But quick is not a week or a month or a year even. Can
Mm,
take longer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Over time, what ways has your mission changed since you first began this journey?
So first, it was just to, be uh, really focused on doing this work for myself to finally wake up and understand what's going on with me and with others. Second is to understand that, all of us are here having the same experience, different experiences, because this is a bit of an expedition. You come here to have these experiences to eventually learn in this lifetime or another lifetime how to bring balance back between the feminine and the masculine aspect of self. And our goal is to actually feel these things without judgment. All the things that happen in your life, typically we, might feel something that's really uncomfortable and we judge it and we try and push it away. And so I have learned now, no, the best thing, just like wind through the leaves of a tree. You know, the wind will blow through all the leaves and the branches of a tree, and the tree will move. The tree does not reject the wind. The tree does not judge the wind. The tree just lets it flow through, and it feels it. It experiences it. And we need to do the same thing. Something uncomfortable comes up. It's an opportunity for you to feel it, let that energy flow through you, not to block it, and just feel it and be grateful for feeling it and do it without judgment. And as you do that, you start to integrate that, and you will at some point learn to lead with the heart, which is, feminine aspect, lead with the heart, and let your thoughts be consistent with that leading, but consistent in a loving and kind, non-judgmental way, in a supportive way. And so there may be different processes that get you there, but this is the kind of journey, this is the kind of outcomes that I believe we're all looking for, is to bring this balance back between the masculine and the feminine.
Hey everyone, I'm excited to share that you can now support the show on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/supernormalized. Your contributions help me to create even more amazing content. Please check out the link below in the show notes and join our community and unlock exclusive perks. Thank you so much for your support. It sounds a lot like a Zen sort of space.
You'd have to describe the Zen. I have a concept of what Zen is. And if it's the same as what you're thinking, it probably is.
Well, from what you're saying, it sounds very, very Zen-like, that being in the in-between and just letting it all be.
Yeah, well, you will learn to accept and allow everybody exactly as they are without judgment, criticism, or negativity.
Yeah, it's very Zen. Okay, can you elaborate on what it means to shift into higher frequencies of consciousness? What did that mean to you?
So, okay, so I'll give you this. So everything that I'm talking about is a shadow consciousness form. It's a construct to describe something that we can understand as a human. The individualized human can never truly know what source is in a knowing way, but what we can do is we can take these constructs that give us analogies of what it is, so that we have a target, so that we understand. So source was originally, if we want to call it originally, so that again, shadow construct here, shadow consciousness form. We can do it in quantum physics, we can do it in Newtonian physics. So this is more of a Newtonian physics example. So, source is in the state of opposing impulses, the impulse of will to move out and create, and the impulse of purpose to give form to creation, to experience it. But it's in these opposing impulses that are locked in this mutual embrace of silence and stillness and equilibrium. And no matter how science probes space, they will never actually understand this. The only way that you have this understanding of what source is you need to experience it. And the way you experience it are some of the things that we've been talking about. So when source wanted to experience itself, it tore apart these impulses, and for a very long time, it was chaos. We see it as electromagnetism. We see it as light, which is movement. We see it as light, as a wave, and we see it as energy moving out. And then purpose is magnetism in terms of bonding and rejection, or attraction, repulsion. And so this is the active state of consciousness. So the silent state of consciousness in equilibrium, the active state of consciousness that allows for the formation of particles, that allows for the formation of elements, that allows for the formation of a living molecule, and that's cells. These are all part of this process to create individualized form. And so we know, for example, that our bodies at a subatomic level, we are all just energy. And that energy, is drawn together to create elements, to create elements, to create um, or to create molecules, then to create elements, then to create living molecule, and then to create cells. So we know our body at a subatomic level, we are way more just space than anything that's solid. Our bodies are not solid. We just perceive it as solid. And these at the portals of the edge of this universal divide between this place of silence and stillness and equilibrium, and then the active part of consciousness is really high frequency. Like our source is at a very high vibrational frequency, and the lower we go in frequency allows these forms of elements, etc., to be drawn and bonded together to create this illusion that we think is solid: the cups, the desks, the computers, etc. So a low vibrational thing is maybe inanimate object, and there's things even below this, but there's an infinite varying frequencies from the edge of the universal divide, which is the highest frequency, down to some really ponderous levels below where we're even at. And so life force energy operates in all of these things. In terms of light and dark, love and hate, all of these things, everything is God, if you want to call it God or source. Everything is source because it's all made out of the same thing. It's all made out of consciousness awareness. And we are here to slow down our vibrational frequency, to come into form, to have these experiences that we view as individualized form outside of ourselves, to be able to experience it, integrate it, and expand consciousness. And we'll call it Christ consciousness, to expand Christ consciousness and expand the universe and expand the breadth and the depth of experiential um, what's the word I'm looking for? Experiential form that enables this expansion of consciousness. So you can imagine in a very high vibrational state, you are bathed in the sea of unconditional love. But if you were always in that state of unconditional love, you would never know a what anger and hate and judgment and condemnation and all of these other horrible things that we do to ourselves, slaughter each other. You would never have the experience of those things. So in order to expand consciousness, Source created this mechanism to have these lower vibrational impulses at a very low vibrational level that we can come here and experience, and then we can come back to our truth. In reality, you are a master. You are equal to everyone else, and you are a master, but you're currently having this dream right now that you are here and you're physically here and you're having these experiences of individuality around you so that you can individually grow and reintegrate to bring your masterhood to form and ability while you're still incarnate in this body.
Mm.
And when you do that, that's when the fun begins.
Mm. Mm. Exactly. For people that are actually stuck in a sort of process themselves of deep depression and are new to spirituality, what steps would you recommend for beginning a transformative journey?
Well, first it has to come from within. You've got to, life is really this journey within. And so stop looking outside yourself, really understand, and then you've got to find something that will resonate with you and start you on this process. I recommend, you read my book, give it a shot. If, reach out, get the material. If it works for you, fantastic. If it doesn't, that's okay. Just keep looking till you find something that resonates with you. Because I can tell you, whether you are living on the street, whether you are in a middle class home or you're in a mansion, people in all of those areas, everything outside of you is a distraction. And, we think money will bring us happiness and joy. We know from people around us that are wealthy, not me, but we know from people around us that are financially wealthy, doesn't necessarily bring happiness and joy. It brings other issues associated with it. So, you know, people get caught up in drugs, they get caught up in power issues, they get caught up in all kinds of stuff. And I can tell you that you have the power right where you are, whether you're on the street or live in a mansion or anywhere in between, to change your life right where you are. You just need the process, and then you need the impetus to look for that process and then stick with it and build faith in it. So you need something that is going to resonate with you to continue this work.
Hmm. Have you encountered any common misconceptions about self-help practices in during your self-discovery?
So it takes a while to get there, and the first thing is that really it's not about anything outside of you. You've got to start to go within. You've got to start to take this seriously. If you desire, take it seriously, and then find this process works that actually will take you on this inward journey. And at some point, you will understand that every answer that you desire, every answer that you are looking for, it's already within you. You don't have to look outside yourself to get the answer. You don't have to go to other people to be taught. What you need to do is look inside, make this connection, and then go through this process of, really where we're headed, where each of us are headed, whether we know it or we not, is really come into communion with Source and have conversations every moment of the day about what should we be doing, because it's a co-creation. It is a creation for Source to be able to express itself through you with your assistance because you are part of Source, and to have this experience together. And why would you we individually think we have a great plan for our life. And we go out and we always think we know better. That is the little mind of ego. And when Source has the perfect plan for you, Source has the perfect design for you and the perfect experiences for you. And when you let go and you start making this connection and going through and making this process of always asking for guidance, and then take that guidance and act on that guidance without doubt, then I'll tell you, a phrase used, I think, probably in the Bible. I don't know. I don't know much about the Bible, but all good things will be added to you. You will start to experience things. You will understand that everything outside of you is really just energy. And what you're doing is you are creating this experience of having new things come to you that you can't even dream of because it's beyond you. And I'll give you one example of this, which I didn't even know I did, but I shared in my book. In When I was a kid, my mother used to take us to this fair every year, the Pacific National Exhibition. And they always had, win a house, win a car. So they always had this house built and fully furnished that they had in a lottery. And they also gave away 12 cars. And so my mother used to buy these tickets all the time. They used to be these little things you fill out, little form, perforated, stick them and put them in the box, right? That soon became electronic in the 90s. But so we used to buy tickets. So I was used to going every year, she'd buy these tickets. And I adopted when I was 20 years old. Anytime I went to the fair, I'd buy tickets for this. So I was always looking to buy the house. I always had nice cars, or I had a car that was fine. Cars didn't matter. I was always looking to buy the house. So I kept buying tickets every year, $100, right? And then in 2011, I was doing something and I got in my mind that I would like a Lexus hardtop convertible, $60,000 car in Canada. And I would like a silver Lexus hardtop convertible. And I thought, oh, one day I will own that car. I'll go out, I'll make some money, I'll buy the car. And so I'd sit in my chair in this beautiful waterfront home we had. I'd sit in my chair in my office, and throughout the day, what I'd do is I would just think about that car. I had a picture of it on the wall, and I'd think about that car, and I'd look at the car, I'd form a picture in my mind. And I think we had this really windy road to get to our house. And I think about driving that top down, breeze through the hair, and how much fun I was having, how much joy I was having. Did that every day, probably, 10 times a day for a year. I bought tickets to this lottery in the spring, didn't pay attention to the cars, looking to get the house, hopefully winning the house. So that was in the spring. In the fall of that year, they did the draw for the house, they did a draw for the cars. Got a phone call. My caller ID on my cell phone said PNE, Pacific National Expedition, PNE. So I wonder why they're calling. So I pick it up, and they verified who I was. And they said, "You've won a car." And I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "What kind of car?" And they said, "Well, it's a Lexus, I can't remember, 250 IC or HC, whatever it was called." And I went, "Oh, what kind of car is that?" And he said, "Well, it's a hardtop convertible in silver." It was the exact car I had. Now, I didn't know what I was doing
Mm,
was I was creating
that
this
reality.
to come to me in some, unheard of, unimagined process. But we do this with our thoughts every day, all day long. You think with electrical impulses in the brain, you feel with magnetic impulses in the nervous system. Your electrical thinking is this creative consciousness plan. Your feeling draws energy, particles of energy together to bring these events, these experiences, these things into your life. We do it unknown to ourselves. This is what we are constantly doing. If you continue to feed your mind with all of the things that are on TV, denigration, kind of uh, vitriolic outrage, and these action movies, which are really entertaining, but full of violence and revenge and hate. And you read the news and you watch the TV and you listen to the news and you do this. These are the things that permeate your mind. These are the things that are always going through your brain. These are the things that you create to come to you in unexpected and horrible ways. I gave up watching, the only thing I watch on TV right now is something that is light and fluffy and, like a romantic comedy. I watch nothing that, has violence and denigration and hate and revenge and all that other stuff. I don't read the news. I don't pay attention to the news. My wife reads the New York Times every day, gives me a little update. I know what's going on in the world, but I do not immerse myself in that. I do not have any of those thoughts during the day. I think about love. I think about God. I think about pleasant experiences. I think about what can I do to serve humanity.
Mm, yes, yes. Perfect, and a really good understanding of how that all works. I mean, if you put it down, ultimately, then we are all really a master sort of magician in the world. We actually manifest everything we want and need. And like you said, then if you plug into the wrong PowerPoint, you're going to be getting garbage. So,
Yeah. Well, you are, so I'll tell you how you are as powerful creator as you will ever be. You just don't know it. You're not learning, you're not trying to get anywhere. You are trying to shed yourself of all of these illusions and all of this thinking that is driven by, all the things in what we would consider to be past lives that we have brought forward, all of the things that happened as you were a child that you grew up and reinforced, all of this thinking. You are looking to shed that and come back to your truth. And when you come back to your truth, you come back in alignment with where we come from before we're born, where we return to after we die. And that is your, master self as a master creator of unconditional love. But I tell you, it takes work. It's not necessarily, this is your soul is having a lot of fun right now. Your soul is saying, hey, these are experiences, these are fun. We might not individually feel like that while we're here. We might think, man, this is hard. This is like, I just want to be done. You know, you will have times like that for sure. But I can tell you, if you can work on this process, go through this process, and then when you feel, life is full of ebbs and flows. The sun comes up, sun goes down, the tide comes in, the tide goes out. You will have these moments of a spiritual spring where things are blossoming, and then it'll bloom for you, and then you'll harvest it in the fall. You'll have this magnificent, and then you go through this dying away period through the rest period of winter. And in those moments, maybe you don't feel connection with source. The thing is, keep going with faith. Source is still emitting to you. It's just that your cosmic situation, the energies that you are currently embodied and that you are emitting, are not allowing source to actually speak with you, not allowing source to connect with you. Source connects with you, you just don't feel it. And so if you continue in those dark periods with faith that you're still being loved, that you still have this connection, then pretty soon your spiritual spring will blossom again. And as you go through this process, those dark periods could be a month or two long, could be 3 months long. But I tell you, the longer you do this, the more you do it, the more faith you build, those become shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, and more wonderful things will happen in your life. Doesn't mean everything's roses. We're all here, we're all learning, we're all having fun, we're all coming back to who we are, and we all have a different path. And that's so source can experience, and you are source, so you can experience, so source can experience all this amazing variety that we have that's out here for us across the universe.
Beautiful. Turning towards your book, what are the key concepts in your book, Higher Road, and can anyone apply them to their lives at any stage?
So, yes, on the application. When you desire to do this and you're willing to do the work, you can do it. So, some of the things we've talked about today are not going to be in the book because some of the things we've talked about are things that I've come into since then.
So that's in book 2.
It will be. It's not at the moment, but I can tell you that everything that I offer in the book is personally, as long as it resonates with you and it makes logical sense to you, it is a path for you to come to your own spiritual awakening. The steps are all there. And so I'll tell you what the 7 steps are. I offer 7 steps in the book.
Yeah, sure.
And that might not answer your question specifically, but I'll tell you the 7 steps in the book. Okay. So first is I want to stretch your consciousness. I want to give you an understanding. So in my book, again, I share my memoir. I'm very candid about many things to give you the concepts and the idea, give the reader the concepts and the ideas of the kinds of thinking that I adopted as right, wrong, good, bad, true, false, that started to bring these events into my life. Then I share these events and I share my thinking and I share how it affected me and brought me to this point. So that's the memoir. Then what I want to do is I have a part on consciousness that gets everybody, so engineer like here, bring everybody onto the same page, make sure we all have the same definitions and understanding of what consciousness is. I share these pre-reading material if you desire to do that. One's on memes that will describe in a really clear way how we let memes shape our lives. This was a book written in 92 or 93, and by the 78, I think it's the 78th or 87th person hired by Microsoft. Really bright guy. And he wrote this book and he predicted a bunch of things in the book that actually came true. But so first thing and then in these science books I share a book on epigenetics, which will explain to you how your thinking and feeling will affect your biology. And then the next book I share is a book on neuroplasticity to give you examples of people that have been physically harmed in some way or damaged in some way, but how they were able to go through a process to rewire their brains to be able to function normally in the world. And so this allows you the neuroplasticity is really important for you to understand in terms of your brain does not atrophy and shrink as you get older. You can build new brain cells and you can rewire it to think differently. And then I stretch your consciousness by sharing a book about a woman that had a near death experience. And this near death experience for her, so she was roughly 40, 42 years old. And over a 6 year period, she had developed cancer in her body. And over a 6 year period, she went from having, kind of stage one cancer to her body riddled with tumors from her waist to her head, some the size of lemons, some open and weeping. She required 24/7 care. Um, on oxygen 24 hours a day, needed 24 hours a day care. She fell into this coma. They rushed her to the hospital. The admitting physicians told her family, her husband and family, that she wasn't going to make it through the night. In the hospital, she fell into a coma. And 24 hours later, she woke up. She declared she was going to be totally fine. And in 2 weeks, they couldn't find a trace of cancer in her body.
Wow.
And she describes what she experienced when she was in that coma.
Mm.
And she brought back certain messages, and certain messages was, we are all one. Hard concept to get your head around, but we are all one. Two is that we come from unconditional love and we return to unconditional love. And she brought back a few others, which, if you're up for it, you can read her book. And what that does is that's all documented in science. It's documented in the hospital. It's documented in her medical records. And she's written it in such a way that will give you a new concept of what consciousness is. And then what I do is so that really will stretch your concept of what consciousness really is and give you an insight into where we come from and where we return to after death. And then what I do is I have a section where I share what I will call truths unveiled. And this is some of the things from the material, because what I want to do is I want to give the reader an idea of the kinds of things they would read if they actually followed this process and picked up this material. And it is so logically written and so rational that when you read it, at least for me, I read it and I went, wow, okay, this makes totally sense. I never thought of things this way. And this makes totally sense. And it's pulled all together in this way, which will help you go through this process of this cleansing of the consciousness. Like, you have to read all the material for that, but I give some insights with that. And then step three in my process is really a benchmarking process. If you're going to follow this process and you're going to go through this material and you're going to do this work, first thing you need to do, and you will be explained how to do this in the material when you do it. But the first thing you're going to do is you are going to do this reflection exercise where you're going to write yourself a letter, and you're going to be totally truthful and honest with yourself. You're going to document exactly how you feel about life. And you're not going to lie, and you're not going to cheat, and you're not going to obfuscate. You're going to be totally honest with yourself. And you're going to write it in whatever language you want, vitriolic outrage, hate, whatever you want, write it down. Then you're going to seal this letter, you're going to put it in an envelope, and you're going to open it up a year later. And that provides a benchmark from where you are today to where you're going to be a year later if you follow this process. And you'll be able to open that letter and go, wow, I remember that, but I'm no longer there.
Mm.
And then you're going to go through this process, this cleansing of your consciousness, and it takes all of the material to do this. But what you're going to do is you're going to be going through this process of building an understanding of what the reality of our existence is. And in these embedded ways, it will be this process for you to go through to start cleansing your consciousness.
Mm.
And as you,
I'm still here. My
you're
video
still
just,
here. Okay, perfect.
yeah, just popped off.
Okay.
Sorry.
And so what'll happen is you'll be going through this process of cleansing your consciousness and then rebuilding it because you're going to be learning about where we actually come from. So you rebuild your consciousness. And then you're going to learn this how to meditate daily. You can start with 15 minutes. I recommend minimum 15 minutes, build up to whatever you want. Like I said, I meditate for 90 minutes every morning. And I explain to people why and how the process I use for meditation. You have to find a spot that's going to work for you. But what worked best for me is, sitting in this reclining chair, getting in a totally relaxed position, relax head, face, muscles, everything. Meditate in the morning, put in soft foam earplugs so it blocks out all noise. Sit quietly, close the door, and sit there in silence and stillness and equilibrium to allow source to come into me to make this connection. And these days it's, I get guidance, I can ask questions, I get immediate answers to that, I get explanations, I get all kinds of stuff. And I get this energy traveling through my body that's doing these things in the various chakras in the body that I don't know and I don't need to know because I know it's all for my good. And but I do it first thing in the morning before my mind gets active with anything else. Because as soon as I get engaged in work or conversations with other people, I'm starting to have those human thoughts that invade the mind. And so I do it, I get up early, I get coffee, I sit, I relax, I listen to the little bit of the material, and then I go through this meditative process for 90 minutes. And then what you're going to do is this rinse and repeat. You got to just keep cycling through this stuff. And the more you read it, you'll read a paragraph. A month later, you read the same paragraph, you'll get a whole new meaning out of it. A month after that, whole new meaning. Month after that, whole new. I read it today and I will pick out nuggets today that I never picked out. And I started this in, late 2017.
Wow. Huge. So, Neil, we've come to the end of the podcast. How can people find your book and your website and connect with you?
The easy way is ahigherroad.com will take you to my author's website. Books available globally through, in hardcover, paperback, or, all forms of ebooks. Um, I'm not plugging Amazon, but excuse me. Amazon's an easy way to get it. That's all available there. A little bit dry there.
That's right.
Non-stop talking for an hour.
Yes.
So I'll just say that again. Books available globally. You can get it through bookstores. You can, you'd have to order it, or you can, get it locally through Amazon.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Neil, for coming on the show and taking us through your experience and your story and sharing with us your understanding of the world and how you've changed and how now you used that change to write a book to actually help others find their way through change towards a connection to their higher selves and all consciousness and basically a greater sense of being.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been my pleasure, and thank you for your time, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you. All right, I'll just say goodbye to the listeners. In this episode, Neil has really shared deeply of himself, and I can understand that darkness that you can get stuck in with depression. And I didn't get to talk to it much, but I had been through a depression in the past because of situations I'd been in relationships and not realizing that I could walk away for one thing, but the other thing was, being in the sort of rescuer sort of pattern. I thought I was meant to stick around, but if I had Neil's book at that time, I might have actually also helped myself in different ways. So, all power to Neil and his understanding and sharing that he did so in this episode and through his book. So, if you've enjoyed today's show, please like and subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, that is, and if you're on your pod app, give us 5 stars and say something nice to actually help others find these shows. And if you think somebody would benefit from hearing this show, please share that to them now. Thank you so much for listening. Until next episode, it's bye for now.